Okay, so Michael Securities is one of the well-known personality in mortgage industry from the mortgage world. And Abu Shakir is also here. They are associate feature together. And I can tell you, well-experienced person in mortgage industry and very things down to earth. We can talk a little like very friendly manner also. And he is willing to go extra mile to help us in our transaction. So before wasting too much time, I would like to ask Michael to come here and talk about your company and what products we can discuss something on that thing. And later we can ask a question also.
Okay.
Michael, please.
Thank you for having me this morning. So, just to give you a little bit of background, Mortgage World Bankers was an affiliate of the bank. Now we're actually a division of the bank. I've been doing this probably a little bit over 30 years, right? So, and I started out, right, working primarily with realtors. So I understand what it's like from a realtor's perspective and the level of importance, right? So, in saying that, I just want to highlight some of the things that make us a little bit different that could actually help you put more deals in contracts and get them into closing. Our primary, where we're actually keeping really busy right now, is our light dock programs, right? And what makes us different than a lot of our competition, right? Because I'm sure you guys get bombarded with information from the light dock, P&L. Most of our competition on these rates is priced around 8.5%, right?
To start with.
To start, at a starting point. Well, and we're starting at 6.5 right now. So 200 basis points makes a big difference to somebody qualifying for a loan and getting into the house, right? And obviously, we still have a lot of the affordable programs, right? The FHA programs. We recently added some grants for people that qualify where it doesn't require repayment, right, on some of the government programs. We have the agency product, right? We're priced similar to everybody else, right, on the agency product. So if you guys, and I'll kind of leave this up to you. I don't want to bombard you with information. If you want me to go into details on the light dock program, how we underwrite it, how we look at it, right? Or do you want to leave it open to like a Q&A and let you guys just ask the questions? A lot of you are familiar with the product.
Once again, let me ask Abu Chaudhary to be here also because he's also going to give a lot of answer.
Definitely.
He's more familiar with us also, so he can handle some question.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Okay,
together.
Mr. Michael, you just now, the question arise, you just mentioned that 6.5%. The question arise, how many years?
When we do a 30-year loan, the only difference that we have, ours adjusts every 5 years.
In this,
It adjusts after 5
in
years.
this scenario, buyers, like is scared after 5 years, maybe the interest rate jump. That's why some buyer like does not want to continue like for 5 years. Is it possible, it's continue for 30 years or something?
They could actually come back to us if they're qualified for a conventional loan, and we refinance them. Right, so there's no, especially for the owner occupied, we really don't have prepayment penalties or anything. On the investment property, if they go elsewhere, they're gonna have to pay us the prepayment, the penalties, right? But yeah, if it's really based on eligibility, right?
Right.
And that is what most people do, right?
Right.
They'll go in saying, well, I know the rates are high right now, right? But I'll take a 5-year product for now. I'm hoping within 5 years, there's a little bit of restoration to the product, but instead of paying 8.5 for a 30-year fixed, let me get the benefit of
Also the question, 6.5% for 5 years, for the undocumented loan or documented?
No.
So for documented, if one guy like,
We
yeah,
still
if
have,
you
we still have, I mean, we're lower, we're probably around 6% for that, 6 and the low 6s. But we're not that far off. You could get a regular agency loan for that rate. Where you're gonna use our full doc product if you need higher LTVs, if you have something that, a little bit out of the box, like a non-warrantable condo, right? If you have a non-warrantable condo, you're 8.5%. So we could do the full doc. So if something doesn't necessarily meet the so-called Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guidelines, we could use our full doc. And we are getting a lot of full doc business, ironically, because we're seeing a lot of loans that aren't fitting the full doc, that we're not as restrictive. It doesn't mean that we're just give the money to everybody, right? We do have underwriting criteria, but we understand the local market a little bit more. Like the case of the condos, we could see through that, right? We'll look at the condo. We know it's, yes, it doesn't meet Fannie and Freddie criteria, but we know that the relative risk associated with this condo. So we have the capacity to analyze the buildings beyond just going down a checklist and say, okay, are we meeting all the points on the checklist?
Mike, can I just add one bit to this question? Let's say, you wanna do the 30 years, right? You can do it, no doubt, 8.5%, 9%. What good is that? You gotta refinance it anyway, right? In 2 to 3 years. So instead of taking 8.5%, do it for 6 years, 6.5, right? You save money there, then when the rate goes down, you refinance. So in between these 4 or 5 years, when the rate is high, you save money, at least $40,000 to $50,000. That's the advantage of this program. Go ahead, Michael, sorry.
Yes.
And what happens after 5 years? It's going, if the interest rate going increase, it's going to increase too?
If you refinance it, then it's not going to
No,
increase.
it's not in refinance.
Oh, that goes to market rates.
Right.
Goes to mar-
We have caps,
variable,
but
right?
it could go down or it could go up, right? But there's no basically there's not as much, other than like we have some interim caps, there's no protection after 5 years. It goes to market.
Any other question? Don't quiet. This is
Yeah.
the moment to ask the question. But I mean, there should be a lot of questions to be asked in terms of
And-
to understand. Yeah, go ahead.
And Michael is the encyclopedia, right? You can ask him anything. He got experience over 38 years running the bank.
So Michael, on this form here, it says here, no tax return, no W-2, and no income. What does
Well,
that mean?
I shouldn't say no income. We don't verify tax returns or W-2, but it's not like one of those loans where we don't ask for anything. We'll either get bank statements, we get a letter from the accountant, or like a profit and loss. So it's not like, okay, just sign and we give you the loan. There is due diligence.
Okay.
We just use alternate methods to
Right.
verify income.
Okay,
So, I mean, we highlight no tax returns and no W-2s, right? But it doesn't mean we don't require income, right? We just use the alternate methods to verify it.
oh,
It's saying no document. It doesn't say no income.
Yes, sir.
Without income, how are you gonna pay the loan mortgage?
So, Michael, you do rehab loans, and what are the basic pointers on that?
We do the 203K, right? We do the Fannie and Freddie, the rehabs, right? And it's actually a good program. A lot of sellers are worried to do when they hear FHA and 203K, because it does take longer, right? You gotta get the consultant, right? But like, if it's not for these programs that the house needs, the seller's gonna take a deeper hit to the purchase price, right? If you don't have financing available for the property, right, and somebody's gotta buy it all cash, right? You as a seller are gonna take a hit, right? But if financing is available, and that's where you guys on your end, well, I could get you 650 as is, or 750 using the K. Your decision. How much is the 100,000 worth? Is it worth a little extra weight, right? It's you don't force their hand, but once they see the number, most sellers will come to reality. You know what? Maybe it's worth it's worth waiting a little bit extra, right? And that's how I would present that. It's actually a good program that we're doing some of it, but we should be doing more. And the reason we're not doing as much is because fear from the sellers and fear from the realtors, right? You guys, especially, and the fear is the unknown, right? Well, I'm gonna put this into contract, I don't wanna jeopardize this listing, right? And that's an obvious concern, right? So, but if it's structured properly, right, the 203K is an excellent loan. I could give you guys some pointers that will expedite the process, right? Because basically you have three parties that are involved, right? So You have the contractor, you have the appraiser, and you have the consultant. The biggest time killer is not having all three of them on the same
Pace.
pace, right? You have a contractor with an estimate, the appraiser with a different set of requirements, and the consultant with the act verifying the cost. If you don't have a clear definition, in fact, my recommendation is you get them all there the same day of the inspection. You have the budget from the contractor there, right? You have the appraiser and you have the consultant. So this way, if there's any questions, all three of them, that's probably the biggest delay on the case, right? So if you guys structure it the right way and make sure that they're communicating, it's not that difficult of a loan, right? Because the credit guidelines, ironically, it's FHA, they're more relaxed than conventional,
Wow.
right? So from a credit perspective, it's more relaxed. Documentation perspective, right, you gotta get everybody communicating, right, and make sure that they all understand. But it's actually, I'll give you an idea as to how it works. You're buying a house for $500,000, right? We come up with a number for 50,000 for repairs, right? So total cost is 550, right? $500,000 for the purchase. Now, as long as the property appraises for 550,
Good.
we could do 96.5% financing of the 550.
Wow, that's great.
So we're getting a loan well over the purchase price. But we're not giving the money up front. The money's being held in escrow and released as the consultant and contractor progress the work, right? But you don't have to worry about that part, the release. You're gonna close it, you get your check. If they go 6 months after or anything, that's not up to you guys. You just wanna get it to the table and closed, right? But from a consumer perspective, right, somebody would have had to go in theoretically with heavy down payment, right? Money for the repairs, right? So how many people have that, right? It's gonna be a seasoned developer. And a seasoned developer wants his margin, right? So that price, they're not gonna give you, even though it's worth 550, they'll come in and give you 400, 300. They gotta make money if it's somebody who's gonna flip it, right? So you could see what impact it does to the value and to the seller, right, if you're marketing it that way. Well, if I get a contractor in there, he's gotta make money from it, right? He's gonna have closing costs, he's gonna have selling costs, right? Obviously, he's not, he might do it for 30,000 instead of 50,000, right? But he's got cost and he's gotta make money, right? So, and that's probably when you see a house that needs a lot of work, one of the mistakes that I see from originators and realtors, we try to fit a square peg into a round hole, right? Let's cover up the basement that's flooded, let's cover up this, right? It's gonna come out, right? So to me, sometimes trying to fit a square peg into a round hole delays it more than just putting into 2 or 3K from day one,
Right.
right? We've gone back and forth, oh, we gotta get the seller to fix this, and it drives you guys crazy, right? And we get driven crazy from the origination side. Why can't we close this? Well, look at your pictures. We got mold, we got damage. Like, what are we going to do? Then it comes back to us. Well, the borrower doesn't even have money for us to do an escrow. Like, how do we do this? Right. So, but
One good question, do you have to use the same contractor who gives you the estimate, or you can use?
we don't care. We don't restrict the contractor. So we assign the appraiser and the consultant. Right. So you can't just say it's 100,000 for the work when the consultant says no, this is 30.
Michael,
Right.
I believe if the work goes over 35K, then we need 3 estimate.
That's a good question. It's not so much the estimates. If there's more due diligence, there's 2 types of 2 or 3Ks. One is a streamlined, right? And streamlined, you don't need the same level of due diligence on our end. If it's over 35, we do a little more, what Abu says, diligence on the contractor, right? Make sure the contractor has completed jobs, look at his permits. We want to and we're doing this to protect the consumer, right? Because think of it this way: if we know that the guy can't complete the job, if it's 100,000, are we really helping the consumer by saying, right? So we want to do that. If it's 100,000, it's 100,000, and he has the experience to complete it. So if it's over 35,000, we're going to do more due diligence.
Michael, I got a question for him. He already asked me the same question about the 2 or 3K. Like, he is buying a bank property, like one of his clients. Right, now, they are giving only 30 days to close. So, but they don't have any option because, property is not in a good condition, so,
No mortgage
Right.
contingent
Yeah.
clause.
so,
What in a situation like that, don't try to push it to a 3K.
right,
It's not gonna happen. Right? To say I'm gonna close a 2 or 3K in 30 days is kind of unrealistic. We have some fix and flip programs, but you're not gonna be at a 6% rate, you're gonna be at a 10% rate.
right.
Right? So, but it's timing, right? So, can the 2 or 3K do it? It can. So, will we take it under the pretense of closing in 30 days? No, because it's not realistic, right? You guys will be chasing us, what's going on, why we're not closing? Because think of it, we gotta coordinate with the parties, right, that are involved, right? So, to me, you have to be, when putting it into contract, you have to be realistic with the time frame too. Right, so, if, for the most part, you're gonna need at least 2 months, right, for the K, and I would prep them to possibly go into 3, right? And if you stay on top of it from the beginning, 2 months is a realistic timeframe. Right, but if it starts going back and forth, right, you're done, right? Because think of it, every time there's a change, you gotta get the appraiser, the contractor, the homeowner to agree, right, the consultant, right? So you could spend a month going over the numbers and doing the verification. Whereas if you could get it done up front within a week, then it almost becomes a regular loan. Right, so a 2-month table is realistic when that happens, right? So, and you guys have seen it, there's been some 2 or 3K loans that have dragged out 4 months.
Yeah, 4 months,
Right.
5 months.
So you don't wanna get into that situation, and I guess from your side in dealing with the sellers, is really giving them expectations. So if you're presenting it to the seller, right, oh, we're gonna get you a 2 or 3K, but if he sees how much extra money he could get by doing the 2 or 3K, it's a monetary decision, right? Credit standards, because they're a first-time home buyer, are relaxed. It's just a matter of the additional items that come up. And in general, even if you're doing a regular FHA that's not a 2 or 3K, you know FHA has additional requirements
Yeah.
on the property. So if you see a property is missing banisters, smoke detectors, a lot of deferred maintenance, the FHA program may not be the straight, but you could do it to a streamlined 2 or 3K. If it's like $5,000, there's very little due diligence done. If you're seeing something that painting and stuff, a little bit of damage to the roof, something that's small, that with 5 to 10,000, you don't have to go to a full 2 or 3K. We could do the streamline, and we don't need as much due diligence, because we could see 5,000, yeah, it's realistic. We have the pictures, right? We don't even require a consultant if we could see the scope of the work, right? Because we have the appraiser telling us and giving us a number. So if it's a small amount, we rely on the appraiser. If it's a big amount, we gotta do the full, and it's really all done to protect the consumer, right? We don't wanna put somebody in a situation, right? Because everybody wants, they see the home renovation shows and it looks so simple the way they do it, but we all know there's a lot more involved. So if we see a lot of work, we wanna make sure whoever they're hiring for the work can actually complete the work. So, but it's a good program, and but most of it, the success, is the point of sale with you guys and the seller. Right? It's how you set the expectations from day one. Don't go into contract and then try to go back and say, well, this is it. It's gonna be a disaster. You're gonna have back and forth arguments, right? And you could jeopardize your listing. But if you're clear up front, right? And it's customer service, your referrals, right? Your referrals is what keeps you guys over the years. So upfront communication and upfront expectations is the best way to go.
I have one quick question. So how can we figure it out, it can be done by streamline? If we send a copy of the listing and look at the pictures, can you give a initial clearance that it can be done by streamline?
I get that often. In fact, the booth gave me the other day. I can gauge, but if we don't actually see the house, do you want me to commit? Because I always tell people, you give me an incomplete scenario, you get an incomplete answer. So do you really want to risk that, right? Because I said that conversation with Abu, like, okay, it looks like 5,000, so it's okay to go? I'm like, I'm not saying that, right? I saw a couple of pictures, right? So I just want to be clear. Yes, we're there to give you an opinion. The better way to do it is if the seller's questioning it, right? Let them pay and get somebody in there, like an appraiser, right? With not a full appraisal, but get one of our companies in there to give us an idea or an estimate
Even before the contract, we can send.
before the contract.
That's what my question.
Yeah, you could contract them. You guys, because it's not part of our process, it's outside of our process, right? So it's not an appraisal, but we're gonna get somebody in there to actually tell you that these are gonna be the areas of issue, right? But we'll give you advice, but showing us a couple of pictures and then coming back to me and say, well, I told you. I was that way with Abu. I said, Abu, you're not gonna lock me into this. I saw a couple of pictures, right? So it's really, and it's just like I'm telling you with the sellers setting expectations. I kind of do the same thing with you guys. You guys are all experienced, right?
Yes.
So I don't want to say yes, 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 right? Right? I don't know enough, right? But we're there to support and ask questions and give you our professional opinion, right? With what we see, right? But the only real way you're going to get it done is by getting somebody in there that actually knows the process that'll give you up front. If you got an 800,000 transaction, what's spending $250 for the seller? And scope of it, right? And you know the condition. You guys have seen the houses, right? So you don't need me to tell you what the bank appraiser is going to see and what the others are going to see. You've been there, and that's why I said sometimes we rush to put it into contract. Well, you know the condition. You know what the appraiser is going to say, right? That's why if you set the expectations up front with the seller, right? He's not going to be surprised and say, "Well, I didn't know this." Well, you're getting more money by giving somebody the opportunity to do a 2 or 3K, right? So now you're doing them a favor instead of them doing you a favor and allowing, right? You should turn the table, right, where you're providing them a service. They're not doing you a favor by signing the contract, right? So it's all upfront, and I always believe that.
Yeah, go ahead. I have a question, please.
Sure.
We talk about profit and loss statement about the loan. So if someone apply for profit and loss statement, they thinking before it if something happened in the episode, so like IRS problem or like treasury problem with it.
Well, okay. We're not the IRS, right? So I want to be clear. We're concerned about their income,
Yes.
right? So we're not telling the borrowers what they're going to do with the IRS. We're just saying, show us the income, show us your bank statements, right?
That's profit and loss statement. It's if they're making, it's not these people are making profit and loss statement. So they should have any kind of tax return also.
No, we're not asking for it.
No, not tax. We are asking for the tax return. We ask them for profit and loss statement, which is their accounting or something else.
Correct.
They made it for that, right? So it's not similar to the tax return. That's all I'm asking.
We just require anyone the person who prepares their taxes, CPA, accountant, that has an EA number, right? So we don't really ask for anything else. We do our due diligence on the income, that it's there, right? But we don't report we're just gonna say, you're giving us a P&L, does this make sense?
Right.
Right? That's it, right? So,
Reporting treasury.
no, we don't get involved. So, and it's not something that we tell the consumers, show us your income, right? And we'll do our own due diligence. You're not gonna give us an example, an Uber driver making $250,000. That just doesn't make sense. We've seen plenty of Uber drivers, right? So we know what range, right? We understand their write-offs, we understand them well enough, but it just has to make sense, right? So we're not asking for the tax returns, right? But we are gonna do some due diligence to make sure that it's there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we look at 3 months statement from the Uber and bank deposit.
Yeah.
This is how, can
We
figure out.
rationalize it, yeah.
I understand.
And basically, our concern is similar to what I was saying with the program. that we're giving somebody a loan that they have the ability to make the payment, right? So our programs are designed to verifying, we know what happens with the self-employed, right? So we have a feel on it, so when we're making a loan, we want to make, and most people, when they're buying a house, they know what they could afford. No one's going to say, okay, I'm going to get a $700,000 loan even though I can't afford it, right? Because they're losing their down payment.
Yeah.
So we know what cash flows they have available to them, right? So we're just taking a common sense approach and doing something a little bit outside of the ordinary as far as the verification process. But we're not making loans to people that can't afford them, right? We're just streamlining the documentation and verifying cash flows. That's really it. So, and if you notice, our rates are not that much different from a full doc. Full doc or stated, we're a very small difference in price because we do the same due diligence. In fact, when you take our approach, we actually do a little bit more because that same Uber driver last year could have reported a lot of income, but it's not there. But now we're verifying cash streams. So indirectly on some of the programs, we're doing a little more due diligence than a full doc loan. But it goes back to a common sense approach as to how we put it together, right? If it makes sense and we feel that they could repay, and that's how our programs are designed.
Okay, so how much are we talking about the down payment percentage-wise?
For the light doc, the minimum down payment we have is 25%.
So the down payment determines the loan.
Of course.
The more money you have, okay.
Yeah, correct. And that's why you see, if somebody has the capacity to save 25%, right? So, and they have good credit score, what are the chances of them making the payment? Very high, right? But if they go to a traditional institution, where they walk into Chase, they're gonna walk you down a checklist. Right? No, sorry, you don't qualify.
That's it.
We know that borrower is gonna pay based on our experience, right? But we're not saying, oh, just tell us whatever you want and we'll accept it. Document that, give us a little more information on your cash streams and cash flow. We know if you save the 25%, right, obviously you're making money. If you're struggling with saving the down payment, right? So it's really comes back down. It's indirectly, that's how lending started, right? So we did a little bit of variances, right, FICO score, LTVs, right? But it's basically, it's come down to common sense and the ability for somebody to pay back the loan, right? These loans pay well, right? So that's why we don't differentiate where the market is 8.5, right? Because it's securitized. We're saying, well, we're looking at it from a risk standpoint. We know that these loans pay, right? So why should we price it that much higher than the rest? And that's really what our niche is, right? When you're looking at it right now. So
I think if you look at the NODOC program, like most of them, like they will require at least 20%. But they will ask for 9%, 8.5%, nothing below that. But we are giving you 6.5 or 6.75 on that range. But we are asking for 5% more. That's it. So we are looking for the good borrowers with the good rate.
Great, thank you so much, and Michael, thank you so much for coming over
thank
and
you again.
having us all
you,
enlightened about
everyone.
the programs. Thanks again, Abu, also.
Basically the goal, right, with homeownership, instead of paying rent, you get you buy a home, right, and it's yours instead of paying somebody else, right? And usually, at least with the ethnic community, the way at least that I was raised, because I'm an immigrant myself, right, is the first thing you do is buy a house. It's your own. It's pride of homeownership. So our goal is really to educate people how to do it. Right? If you look at some of the surveys, the two most biggest events that they rate in their life is getting married and buying a home. Those are two of the biggest events. So we're here to help with the other one. We're not good at the matchmaking aspect of it, but on the homeowner side, that's what we do, right? So, and when it comes to consumers, education is to one out there. I hear many times people like, I didn't know I could buy a home. Somebody told me I can't do it. Right? I walked into a bank and they said, I don't qualify. And they take it for face value. I walked into Chase or B of A and they told me I can't do it, so I don't think of anything else. But that's where I guess consumer education, right,
It's very important.
is important.
Yeah.
We're here to help you. We do pre-qualify, we push the first time seminars, right? Let us educate you So even though you're not ready today, you understand what it takes, whether it's light doc, full doc, 2 or 3K, the program, you understand what it takes to get into a house, right? If you don't set your goals, you're never going to reach them. So that's what we'll help do. If home ownership is one of the biggest goals of the consumer, we'll help you set your goal to get there.
থ্যাংক ইউ। সোহেল ভাই কাছে আসি। আজকে আপনারা যে প্রোগ্রাম করছেন সেটির তাৎপর্যটা একটু শুনতে চাই, সিগনিফিকেন্ট কি আছে?
Michael, I'm going to speak in Bengali, so I'll explain. So basically, like, আজকে আমাদের যে প্রোগ্রামটা ছিল, এটার মেন উদ্দেশ্য হচ্ছে যে Michael is the president of the Mortgage World Bank, and Michael is very experienced, and he gave us his inside experience to our community, or to the realtor we have. তো আমাদের এখানে যে রিয়েলটাররা ছিল, এদেরকে বেসিক্যালি আমাদের ট্রেন করা যে কী প্রোগ্রাম আমাদের ব্যাংকে আসছে। বেসিক্যালি লাইক উই হ্যাভ মেনি ডিফারেন্ট পোর্টফোলিও প্রোগ্রাম। কোনো না কোনোভাবে বড়োয়ার অনেকে হয়তো বা জানে না যে তারা কোয়ালিফাই হতে পারে। আমাদের লাইট ডগ প্রোগ্রাম আছে, যেখানে আমরা শুধু পিএনএল দেখে 3 মান্থসের ব্যাঙ্ক স্টেটমেন্ট দেখে আমরা কোয়ালিফাই করতে পারি, রাইট? ফর এক্সাম্পল লাইক উবার ড্রাইভার অর লাইক এনি সেলফ এমপ্লয়েড, তাদেরকে আমরা ভেরি ইজিলি লোন দিতে পারি। ওটা ছাড়া আমাদের ব্যাঙ্ক স্টেটমেন্ট প্রোগ্রাম আছে, কেউ যদি গ্রোসারি ওনার হয়, তার শুধু ব্যাংকের ডিপোজিট দেখে আমরা তাদেরকে কোয়ালিফাই করতে পারি। আমাদের রিসেন্টলি আমরা একজনকে অলমোস্ট, তার ট্যাক্স রিটার্ন ছিল মাত্র $20,000, রাইট? বাট হি ক্যান গেট আপ টু $3 million লোন বেসড অন হিজ ইনকাম, ব্যাঙ্ক স্টেটমেন্ট ইনকাম। But we have a maximum cap is $2 million, right, Michael?
For some programs.
For some
There's
program,
to go
right?
to
Yeah,
the
some of them we can go full doc, yeah, up to $3 million, right?
ওকে, সো আজকে আপনারা যেটি করলেন যে যারা রিয়েল এস্টেট এজেন্ট তাদেরকেও কিছু এসব বিষয়ে তথ্য জানালেন।
Definitely. অনেক রিয়েল এস্টেট এজেন্ট আছে, দে অনলি থিঙ্ক দে নো হাউ টু সেল এ হাউস। তারা অনেকেই জানে না যে বড়োয়ারা কীভাবে কোয়ালিফাই হয়। বড়োয়ারা যদি কোয়ালিফাই না হয়, রিয়েল এস্টেট এজেন্ট তাকে বাড়ি দেখিয়ে কোনো লাভ নেই। প্রথমে জানতে হবে আপনি কত টাকা লোন পাবেন। এটার জন্য ইউ নিড টু কাম টু এ মর্গেজ ব্যাংকার লাইক আস। সো উই উইল লুক এট দেয়ার ইনকাম, দেখে আমরা অ্যানালাইজ করবো সে কতর জন্য কোয়ালিফাই। ওটা দেখে আমরা তাকে একটা পে অ্যাপ্রুভাল দিব। ওই পে অ্যাপ্রুভাল নিয়ে সে রিয়েল এস্টেট এজেন্টের কাছে যাবে, যাওয়ার পরে রিয়েল এস্টেট এজেন্ট তারপরে বেসড অন আওয়ার পে অ্যাপ্রুভাল তাকে বাড়ি দেখাবে।
ওকে, অনেক ধন্যবাদ।
Well said.
We're already good.